All right, everybody, we are at 44 participants. We still have people coming in, but I know we have a lot to get through. So, Maslin, Willow, you think we're ready to go? Go ahead and get started.
Go, it's
All right, we're going to get started. Thank you for being here. Good morning. We love that you've joined us for our BIC break because we worked very hard to make sure that we're bringing you just the highlights, just what you need to know, all the important information to send you off with for your day. I'm going to hand it off to our first speaker, Stephanie, to get us started.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Scout, Willow, and OBAR team. So one of the hot topics that came up when we were at state meetings is that the Real Estate Commission is considering getting rid of single dual agency. Sorry. And I personally got up for the 7:30 a.m. meeting to strongly oppose the commission doing this. And for larger firms, it may not be an issue, but for smaller boutique firms that work closely together in teams, this could be a really big issue because, as everybody knows, I work with my mother. And even though the commission says she and I can practice a designated dual agency, from a ethics side, because we work so closely, we don't feel that that is the way and we should practice single dual agency. Stephanie Walker also brought up a great point to the commission and said, so you're telling me if I have a repeat client that lists their house and then I have another repeat client that wants to buy that house, I've got to tell one of those two people that I can't work with you. And the commission wants to hear from you. If you still do not want to practice single dual agency, you do not have to do so. If you are someone who's not comfortable with that, that is fine. But I feel like that would be a huge impact to a lot of our companies, and 60% of the companies in North Carolina are smaller boutique companies. I believe Scout is going to provide in the messages, or there it is, the email address to voice your concerns by doing away with this. So please take a second to send an email and let them know your feelings on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next up, we have Alona to cover some MLS updates and anything to forms.
Okay, great. Good morning. Thank you, Scout. I've got two quick issues to talk about. Number one is the buyer agency enforcement, written requirement enforcement. So just a quick recap. You guys all remember we currently have a settlement with NAR, and part of the terms of that settlement require all realtors to have a written document before showing. It does not have to be agency, but it has to have certain items within it. Well, the good people in our form NC State and our forms committee at the State Association put together a property showing agreement that you can use. Okay. You can use also non-exclusive buyer agency, or you can use exclusive buyer agency. Okay, those are your three choices. That, remember, is to be in compliance with the NAR settlement that we are a party to. Okay, North Carolina Real Estate Commission is separate. They still allow oral buyer agency to be in legal compliance on that end. Okay, so you can start with a property showing agreement, be in compliance with NAR, and then work into an oral buyer agency agreement and be in compliance with NCREC. And then, of course, per the NCREC rule, you have to move that oral agreement to writing before constructing or writing an offer. Okay, so what's happened is, as part of this settlement, NAR is now requiring the board, the MLS, to enforce buyer broker agreements or some sort of written agreement before showing. Okay. So they required us to put new language in our MLS rules that that we are to perform spot audits, which means randomly someone could be chosen from a showing time receipt that says you were on this house at June 4th at 2:00. Show us some written documentation that you were in compliance with this rule. And if you are not able to do that and are not in compliance, there will be a $500 fine. Okay. So be certain as you're creating your showing time appointments that if you're going out there just to preview the house for your own information, be sure to select that option so you don't get randomly audited from that showing and then not be able to provide documentation when you may have listed it as an agent showing. So just be really clear about that. Let your agents know that they're serious about this, and we now have this enforcement in our MLS rules, and there is a $500 fine attached to that. Anybody have any questions about that before I move to the second thing?
Do have Dan with us, so if you have any questions, please let us know.
Okay. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the
Sorry,
property management. Go ahead.
this is Linda Terry, and I did have a question. Is this $500 fine, is this an OBAR reg or a state reg?
The
This
amount,
isn't-
are you talking, this is a rule that was put upon us by NAR. As far as the amount of the fine, I don't know where that was directed
That's
from.
OBAR.
That's OBAR. Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Can
welcome.
I add? So the process for all of this, as you should be aware, is that we have an MLS committee. The MLS committee reviews, of course, the rules and regulations, fields, we change fields. That all happens at the MLS committee level that then goes to the board of directors. In this case, NAR put forth a rule that it was required that you have this agreement. And they put the onus on how that was going to be enforced on the local associations, the local MLSs, regional MLSs, et cetera, how you were going to do that. And so this was well thought out through committee and then to the board for review. And then the final decision that this is now part of our MLS rules and regulations.
So it looks like Tim has a question also about, are there audits being done on showing time showings? I'm not on the MLS committee, so I don't know the answer to that.
So in many instances, when rules like this are put in place, that it's, they say we have to do this. They say that there needs to be a system in place for enforcement. So therefore we have this in our rules for enforcement. A lot of times it's a complaint driven that somebody says, well, they didn't have this. And then we're notified and then we have to check. And Dan is, for those of you that were not at the annual meeting and have not heard by now, Dan is retiring. Had a great time the end of this year. Scout Schillings, who is our current communications and marketing director, has been cross-training with MLS. She will be your new MLS director come January. Dan, do you have anything to add? Because it was going to either be complaint driven or spot audits done. And that way we're following the rules.
Right now it's complaint driven. So I'm not doing any the audits per se, unless I have a complaint.
Great. Any other questions?
Oh, that Lori had her hand up.
I was just going to add, since I'm on MLS, that the $500 fine was agreed upon because we were following the way the listing agreement fine happens. You have to have a listing agreement signed before you can list property. And so you have to have a buyer agreement signed before you can show property. So the fine is consistent with what we do for not having a valid listing agreement. And Willow covered my other point that this is an NAR rule. We had to put something in place in our policy be compliant with NAR. So.
Right. Great. That makes perfect sense. Thanks, Lori, for that information. And Willow as well. Okay, if no other questions, then we'll move back over to property management. MLS committee spent a lot of time putting together a new property management disclosure, a PMD. While the PMD itself is not mandatory, the Vacation Rental Act does create a few things that are mandatory. For example, number one, prior to entering into any contract of sale, the seller is required to disclose to the buyer the time periods that the property is subject to a vacation rental agreement. Okay, how do you get that information? You have to have that information to be in compliance with the Vacation Rental Act. Well, you get it from the property management company. What are they going to require before they'll give it to you? Some proof that you have a valid listing, that you are entitled to receive this proprietary information. Another thing that is required is that 10 days after closing, seller shall disclose to buyer each tenant's name and address and provide a buyer a copy of each vacation rental agreement covering the time period set forth. Are you providing that? If not, you're not in compliance. What does the PMD do? It alerts the property management company that you've got this listing. And then once you fill out part 2, that the property is actually under contract, these folks, these fine people in your property management companies are more than thrilled and happy to provide that information to the buyer on the seller's behalf. Okay, because that is a requirement. Another requirement is 20 days after closing, no later than, the buyer or buyer's agent shall notify each tenant in writing of the property transfer and whether they have a right to continue with the agreement. If you're not doing that, if you're not submitting your property management disclosure form and letting them know, the property management firm know that you're under contract and who the buyer is, then this buyer is failing in their duty to do that. And you're the agent. They get in trouble. Who are they going to say? Well, nobody told me about this. So the easy way to do it, while this form is not mandatory, it certainly provides the easiest method for being in compliance with those 3 items that the Vacation Rental Act requires you to assist buyers and sellers with when subject to vacation rentals. And the MLS committee even went so far as to making it even easier for you to use by making the buyer's information, if they have a problem with it for some reason, making that optional. They're not asking you to fill that out if the buyer's not comfortable, but they do need to know, at the very least, they need to know that the property has gone under contract, so they can at least be in touch with the attorney's office, so that at least the seller is aware that there could be some large fees coming for cancellations, that there could be trouble in the water ahead if the buyer is not going to be cooperating or not going to be renewing or re-signing or participating with that current property management firm. There are a lot of moving pieces there. And it's come to our attention that the part 2 of the PMD is still not widely being used in all transactions. So as brokers, we urge you to speak to your agents about this and make sure that they understand the form has been revised. It is much easier to use now, and it doesn't make the buyer's information mandatory, but just we need to know when these properties are going under contract. Any questions about this form?
I want to reiterate how important this is. Ilona, this is a great way you presented it and laid out all of the items that has to be done by a property management company. I mean, just the sheer volume of paperwork that they have to do to be compliant is great. So I like the way the form is designed. We do not have to, and I understand as an active agent and doing things like this, you guys, we all have a point where, you know, well, I'm going to give them that after the due diligence is over. I mean, that's the first thing you think of because you don't think this is going to continue. And I think the MLS committee, when designing, you know, helping design this form with having the buyer's information being optional, is a great way to do it. And that kind of, but it does, as Alona said, it gives you it gives the property manager the heads up. Okay, this is coming. And I just wanted to say thank you, Alona. You did a great job explaining that.
Thank you. I mean, just to be clear, the Vacation Rental Act puts the onus on the seller and the buyer. As their agent, that means that onus is also on you. So why not enlist the help of the very willing, fine people in the property management firms to do all of this paperwork for you? Because they're more than happy to do it. And if they're not doing it and you're not doing it and your client's not doing it, you're all in trouble. So let's utilize this form, and please, brokers, encourage your agents to submit part 2 immediately when the property is under contract.
And Alona, if I could just add, and I think you did cover this, one of the things that was brought up during this debate and discussion about this was, you know, the property management company may have work orders on the property. And that's one of the things that all of a sudden hit with, well, you know, didn't know it was under contract and therefore work has been scheduled to be done. So, you know, things we don't think about that maybe, you know, we should consider and be aware of.
Right.
So that was, that I thought was definitely something to be considered.
Yeah, thank you, Alona. I do like this was great. And it is so important to us to have these forms. Can you go back to that part 1 real quick? So one of the changes that I really liked was the expanded PMA cancellation policy field that is there. Please make sure that one of the biggest things that we see going into a property closing is who are the fees being assessed to? So some property management companies withhold their commission and fees from disbursement to the buyer, and some withhold it at closing on a proration. And it can definitely startle a buyer if they are not aware that those fees are being withheld. And so I think it's just really important to make sure that everyone is aware of what the cancellation policy is and that that is relayed, you know, from the agent to their, you know, their client, because there's been some confusion on that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tiffany. I mean, I think what we need to take away from this, guys, is that the process, the Vacation Rental Act and the process of transferring ownership mid-summer with, or even in the spring, with a lot of people's vacations in the balance, it is very complex. There's a lot of pieces to it. And if you're not engaging the assistance of the property management firm, you're setting your client up for unnecessary fees, trouble, issues, and potential lawsuits. So this form is critical. If the property is subject to vacation rentals, this needs to be a critical piece of your representation, whether you're representing a buyer or a seller. Please utilize it because those fees can add up and become very, very costly. And if that's all, I will turn it back over to Scout.
All right, and I will hand it right back over to Donna with some government affairs updates for us.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm going to run through this stuff. We've got a lot of information here. So the first thing I want to talk about this morning is that we had municipal elections yesterday. And probably the most surprising thing out of that is that the vote for the mayor in Kitty Hawk is only being separated by 2 votes. Miss Charlotte Walker is ahead by 2 votes over former Mayor Gary Perry. I feel 99.99% confident that there will be a recount in that, and so that's liable to change. And so we'll see how that shakes out. The other in Duck, the top 5 vote getters will be sworn into office. They will elect their own mayor. The top vote getter there was Monica Thibodeau. I anticipate that she will probably be sworn in or elected as mayor. The new face on there will be the gentleman who currently serves as the planning board chair, Mr. Mark Murray. He is a general contractor. Some of you may know him. He's been around for a while, so he'll be the new face on that. There's also 4 votes separating the 2 lowest vote getters, so there's liable to be a recount there. In Nags Head for the 4-year seat, Megan Vaughn and Bob Sanders were elected to those 2 seats. And for the 2-year expiration of the 1-term limit, Molly Harrison was elected for that. So there'll be some changes there in Nags Head. Megan Vaughn is currently the chair of the planning board. So she'll be moving up to the Board of Commissioners. So they'll have to find a replacement on the planning board there. So if any of you are residents of the town of Nags Head, be sure to submit an application so you can be considered for the planning board. We like to have our members in some of those advisory board seats. In Manio, Todd Clissold was elected as mayor. There were no changes in Kill Devil Hills or Southern Shores. So we'll continue to watch the race there in Kitty Hawk between the mayor's race. That's pretty interesting. Moving on to the next topic that's been a big topic of conversation is what's been going on down in Buxton. It was a large part of the discussion on Monday at the Dare County Board of Commissioner meeting. Chairman Woodard indicated that he would be sending letters to all of the state legislators asking that they fund the state beach nourishment fund on a regular basis and a recurring basis, and that they also consider lifting the ban on hardened structures for terminal groins and jetties and similar structures. Right now, the only hardened structure that North Carolina Coastal Management Act allows are temporary sandbags. And you know, from all accounts, excuse me, from all accounts, it's a pretty bleak situation down there. I was talking to the planning director for Dare County on Monday afternoon, and he was saying that they have all this debris that's scattered on all of the streets. The debris contractor from the county is going down on the 17th, and so there's really nobody down there cleaning it up, or it's just a mismatch of debris. And that the one gentleman whose house is in danger that he's been working with can't get his contractor down there to move the house because there's debris from one house that's fallen that's laying in the right of way. And the guy whose house fell, his insurance agent is telling him, well, don't move the debris because we have to send our appraiser down there to look at it. And so he said that it's just a real nightmare situation. And so I don't know how that's going to resolve itself. Again, they're going to appeal for that removal of the ban on hardened structures. That certainly will not be a quick fix. They did indicate that they have moved the schedule for beach nourishment there in Buxton from 2027 to 2026, that as part of that nourishment, they will be doing repair on the existing old groins that were put in place decades ago in conjunction with the Coast Guard base there. So there's hope that repairing that one groin that's out there will provide some relief from that in conjunction with the beach nourishment. So there's a lot of talk about the need for a state of emergency. County Manager Alton explained that in his opinion that the state of emergency really is not the solution is what people seem to think it is, that the level of damage down there, although it is significant, it doesn't meet those thresholds that are needed at the state level to open up financial assistance to individuals that typically is associated with larger storms. So that's what's going on there. There has been some articles in the Outer Banks Voice that last week where Congressman Murphy was quoted as speaking about his legislation that he submitted last year. It's called the Prevent Environmental Hazards Act. It's very similar to what we all used to refer to as the Upton-Jones Act, and you'll see the one-page flyer there on the screen there that hits the highlights of that. He's been working to try to get similar legislation passed that would establish the ability for these owners of these endangered structures to file a claim before they collapse, to either demolish the structure or relocate the structure. He was quoted in the article last week as saying that he had been having some success with getting some movement on that he had it scheduled, or that he was having conversations with the necessary subcommittees to move that forward. But now with the federal shutdown, that's been stymied once again. And so he recognizes that it's a big push. We've been very involved in our support of this legislation, and we will continue to be so, because it just makes so much sense that I just, again, it just makes so much sense. And so there's that one-page flyer there that hits the highlights of it. It would provide property owners the ability to get up to 40% of the value of the structure in advance to go in and demolish it, or 40% of the value of the structure to relocate it. And so we will continue to work on that. And I know that there's also support for that from a lot of the other coastal communities, not just in North Carolina, but elsewhere. And so we'll see how that tracks out once we get back from the federal government shutdown. That's also lending to part of the problem with the cleanup down there, because typically when we'd have these structures fall, the Park Service was very active because the structures were falling on their property or the federal beach, and they were down there cleaning up. And now that they're not authorized to be working, they don't have any involvement with the cleanup, so it's falling back on the property owners. The property owners have been advised by the county that their contractor will be down there to start cleanup on the 17th. And so hopefully those folks are hiring their own contractors to get the debris down to the right of way. But from what I understand from talking to the folks at the county, that it's a real very critical situation down there, that you just, it's unfathomable how this has happened, or how it's going to be effectively addressed, because it's just having an impact on the community down there that no one could have anticipated. The other big thing that we didn't have scheduled to talk about this morning, but I feel compelled to talk about it. We got word yesterday that the North Carolina Rate Bureau has filed dwelling rate increase. They filed that on October the 30th, and the Department of Insurance released a press release on that on the 3rd of November. So that was just Monday. They are looking for 2 consecutive years of increases for Territory 110, which is us, the Outer Beaches here in Dare County and Currituck County. They're asking for a 40% increase on the dwelling rate policies for each year. And then for Territory 130, which are the other areas or the non-barrier island portions of Dare County, they're asking for a 37.4% increase for both years. So that would be effective July 1st of 2027, and then July 1st of 2026. The first one in 2026, the second one in 2027. Public comment period is open until November the 19th. Looking at those base rates that they've published, it represents about $100 increase for Territory 110, and about a $60 increase for Territory 130. And that's based on $15,000 worth of coverage, which we know is going to be exponentially higher, because the home values are going to have more than $15,000 worth of coverage in that extended coverage. So tell your folks that own those second homes and vacation rentals out there that this is being considered by the North Carolina Department of Insurance, and to get those emails into the Department of Insurance. You know, we've been down this road many times. And again, I'll say this to you, and I'm sure I'll say it in an email to the Commissioner of Insurance. It's just so disingenuous the way that they do this. They ask for these astronomical amounts, and then they always negotiate back. And so It's just kind of crazy the way that we do business like that. And so I'm going to stop right there. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. And we'll probably be following up with some more information about that dwelling rate increase. Like I said, we just got, I thought I was on the press release notification for the Department of Insurance, but I didn't get that until Michael Davenport sent me a text yesterday afternoon. So we're working on that. The increases are consistent throughout the coastal area. We're bearing the brunt of them. And so we'll see where this goes. And typically, the fact that it's for dwelling policies, it doesn't seem to get the same level of response and consternation because it's not the homeowner rate policy. So property owners that own the second homes, but they need to be as motivated as if it was, affecting their primary structure. And so last time we had the homeowners increase, we did a big push with the local governments, and they were able to post everything on their webpage and get a high level of involvement because it was property owners and it was affecting their primary structure, their primary residence. And so I feel certain that we'll be asking the towns to provide the same level of information on their web pages, even though it's a dwelling policy rate increase. And a lot of times people don't understand that distinction there. So we'll have to do a little bit of education there. But for us in the industry, we understand that the dwelling rate increases are very impactful as well, since we have so many vacation rental here in second homes. So I'm going to stop right there. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Donna, I'd just like to follow up and add to what you said. First of all, with regards to the insurance, when they say dwelling rate policies, as Donna has already said, dwelling policies typically cover second homes, whether or not you rent it out or not, vacation rental homes. It also affects the wind-only policies with the NCIUA. If you have a dwelling policy with the beach plan, as it's called, referred to, or you have a, whether it's full dwelling policy or dwelling wind, that's going to impact that. Plus you get surcharged on top of that. This is the first time I've seen a rate filing that they've asked for consecutive back-to-back increases over a 2-year period. So 40+% the first year, 40+% the 40% the second year. I have never seen that in a rate filing before. So the dwelling policies, again, it's not your primary residence. It's anything that's a second home. You rent it out year round, you rent it out short term. Typically, they're covered by dwelling policies. If you have an HO policy, that's homeowners. So again, it's same story, different day. We've been fighting this good fight for 20 years on how the rate increases tend to happen here. And when we just look at percentages, 40% to us could be on a, $1,500 to $4,000 rate versus inland of $600 to $800 rate. So don't be fooled by percentages if it says, well, there's a 40% increase planned for Raleigh too. That 40% is on 600, ours is on a few thousand. So I wanted to just follow up on that to make sure that's clear with everyone. We'll be getting information out, Donna. We might be doing a podcast again on that call for action to get folks to respond and send some information to the Department of Insurance. Also, when you were talking about Buxton, we have gotten calls of transactions on the northern beaches that have been impacted by what's happening in Buxton. We are fully engaged in conversation with Donna, with the county, with the Visitors Bureau. John Head is on our board of directors. He was just reelected for a second term, for a 2-year term, to serve as our tourism board director. I know Tim Cafferty's on this Zoom meeting. He served in that capacity as I believe, chair of the tourism board. And so the Outer Banks Association Realtors is engaged in the conversation. We can't do a call for action when we don't know what we're calling for. And so to meet everyone and the stakeholders involved, Donna, you said you talked to Noah Gillum on Monday. He told her that he almost needed GPS to figure out.
That's what he told me, that it was so bad down there that you needed, Google Maps or GPS to figure out where you were. And that's, from somebody who's very familiar with the area. He just, he's just completely, when I talked to him and he was describing the situation with the property owner where the guy was literally doing everything he could to move his threatened structure, but the other guy's debris was in the road. And, this guy's calling him saying, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't move with that debris in the road. My guys can't get down there. And so I'm not sure how they resolve that. I haven't talked to him since then, but that's just, I think they were going to end up telling him to contact his attorney and to move the stuff out of the way and see, just let what do you do? If you're the guy whose house is getting ready to fall in, do you just tell the other guy, well, I'm sorry about you and your insurance agent, my house is getting ready to fall in, and create more debris? And so, just a real nightmare situation.
And all realtors, coastal realtors, should be educated on the National Flood Insurance Program. And I know we have pushed the NCDOI free CE that they have. I think it's about 5 times a year, and we promoted that. It's been on our website. Every realtor on the Outer Banks should almost be required to take that class. It's great, 4 hours, great education on how the NFIP works. There's only $250,000 limit in the NFIP. So when Donna was talking about the 40%, of your value,
it was up to
move your
250.
Yeah, it's there's only a limit of $250,000. I actually had someone call me and ask me if they thought people were buying up houses on the oceanfront in Buxton and Hatteras just so they'd fall in and they'd collect the insurance on the house. And I was like, that's the, worst question I've ever been asked. Like, you obviously have no understanding of how this all works. Like, I don't think you're buying a big house that you're paying more than $250,000 for to collect maybe. And if it's a second home in the NFIP, you all should be aware, you do not get full replacement cost on that policy when a claim is made. You only get depreciated value. So it's pennies on the dollar. It's not dollar for replacement. So anyway, that's for another time. And thank you very much, Donna, for all your efforts. We have the best government affairs director in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you, Willow.
The country.
I do have a question for Donna, if that's okay. Donna or Willow, when you guys do your podcast about this topic, could you please include a bit about the unique structure that our North Carolina Rate Bureau operates that's unique to North Carolina? And I remember when we were at leadership last year, or the first year, Willow, you did a great little synopsis of how that works and how it's unique to North Carolina. And I don't think most people understand. And so if you're going to do a podcast on it, it'd be great if you could redo that little blurb so that we have a better understanding of that.
Absolutely.
Can do. Thanks for the suggestion.
We've had a couple comments asking about the flyer. Everybody wants that great flyer. I will make sure that that goes out in an email with the recording and other links that we have for you. And it is 9:41, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Tiffany. She's going to give us some updates, some lesson learned from property management this summer.
Yes. So I was in a meeting at OBAR and we were discussing fraud. And one of the things that had kind of come up was fraud that property management is experiencing this year, or has been kind of experiencing since post-pandemic. And that is chargebacks. And so I wanted to just kind of bring some awareness to the fraud that we're kind of seeing and what we're dealing with. And so essentially 20% of our travel industry transactions are now flagged as potential fraud. Since COVID, we've seen an explosion in online bookings, and with that, a spike in fraudulent transactions and chargebacks. So unlike retail or something you could purchase on Amazon, our product is an experience. So it makes disputing these charges really difficult. It's not a matter of if it's affecting us, it's when. And so I think some of us have been seeing that more recent. But they've surged post-pandemic. Industry loss is estimated to be about 25 billion globally each year. And our biggest issue is that card not present bookings. So people are doing online bookings without having a card present. So just kind of what is a chargeback? A chargeback happens when a guest disputes a charge through their credit card issuer. Even when we have proof of their stay, their rental agreement, the burden of proof on us is high, and often the processor is going to side with the cardholder. So it becomes a form of friendly fraud where guests leverage the system for free stays and refunds. So common causes are stolen or unauthorized cards, and dissatisfaction or property misrepresentation. The outcome is the property manager loses payment and fees, and our owners obviously lose money. This is just kind of a quick synopsis of the life cycle, but once a chargeback is filed, it starts a formal process. The guest bank will immediately pull back the funds from us, and the burden shifts entirely to us to prove legitimacy. If we contest, it's called a representment, and we submit all supporting evidence, the rental agreement, check-in logs, correspondence. Even if we win, though, the issuer can still challenge through pre-arbitration. And then at the final stage of arbitration, Visa or MasterCard make that final call, but it is costly to go through the arbitration process for our homeowners and for us from an administrative side. The impact on our market. So for property management firms, these disputes aren't just about money. They're hurting occupancy rates, staff efficiency, and even owner confidence. So when an owner hears that a $5,000 week was lost to a chargeback, it shakes their faith in process. And on a larger scale, it erodes trust in the professional management world altogether. And so it also loss of inventory, lower occupancy, et cetera, are certainly impacts. Local relevance. So because the Outer Banks is high seasonal demand with high transaction volumes, we have a unique exposure. Our guests book from all over the country, often months in advance with no in-person contact. Flexible stays and online payments are great for conversion, but they widen the door for fraud. It's something we as local, property management companies have to be proactive about. The increase of off-season flexibility and last-minute rentals has really kind of shifted where chargebacks are becoming more prevalent for fraud. So this past year, we had what is being identified essentially as a fraud ring. We had a guest that made a reservation 14 days out from arrival. Our process was that we collect an ID for any last-minute reservations. We collected the ID. Guests came and stayed. They checked out. Mind you, they rented a 10-bedroom house. Went to check out on Saturday. Immediately booked a different home. And that kind of threw up a flag to our res agents, which escalated it to a property manager. Property manager consulted with housekeeping, asked the condition of the home they had checked out of. They had said they had only used one room and the house had smelled heavily of smoke. The property manager used forewarn and looked up the leaseholder's name and determined that he had several charges for felony charges for credit card fraud. And so she denied the booking. Later that evening, they went online under a different person's name, used the same stolen credit card. We got the ID from the person that matched the leaseholder, et cetera. And then both of those guests' reservations were charged back because they were using a stolen credit card. So the cardholder went and charged back when he got his credit card statement at the end of the month, and it was roughly $22,000 in loss on chargebacks. And so some companies have jumped on the bandwagon a lot sooner than others with some of the products that are out there, such as Guest Ranger and other identity protection products that will help us, but certainly something that we've seen an uptick of, and essentially collaborating with other property management companies and trying to combat this as a whole. The fraud ring that we have has been turned over to attorneys and police and all of that, but it has been timely and it is costly to do all of that. So felt like it was important to share that with everybody when we were talking about it, and open for any questions or thoughts. If not, Scout, back to you.
Great. Willow, will you close us out with some association news?
Absolutely. All right. I'm between you and getting all your other stuff done here today. I would like to mention we had our annual meeting last Thursday with our election for 2026 leadership. Christy Bryant, who is with you here today, is your 2025 president. She'll be moving into the position of immediate past president. Janice Scarborough was your president-elect. She is moving into the position of president. You elected Stephanie Dozier for your president-elect for 2026. She will move into the position of president in 2027. Maslin Seal was elected as secretary, treasurer David Roberts. We have returning directors at large. It's a 2-year seat. Haley Winslow, Tiffany Moldovan that you just heard, and Leslie Coleman, she is on this call as well. And then you have elected as your 3 new directors at large for 2-year seats, Carrie Bateman. She was your property management director for the last 3 years, did a phenomenal job. Alona Madison, she is on this call as well. And then we welcome Winston Hawkins as well as Winston's wife, Whitney, as your new property management director in 2026. John Head also returns as, like I already mentioned, as the tourism board director. So we have a seat there, and that is a county appointment. We do the election and then and they accept the name, or they can say, hey, can we have somebody else? But we work well with the county. We've established a great relationship over the last couple decades. So I wanted to give everyone a heads up on that. We are saying goodbye to Tammy Aycock, your current secretary. Tammy will be returning next year as the chair of the MLS committee. So we're excited to continue to be working together. You have billing coming up. As brokers in charge, you should be aware that we do billing twice a year. You should be well aware of that. We bill for NAR, NCR dues the 1st of December that's due in January, so that we can break it up. We're a resort community, so we know when money's being made and try to give you a little break there. And then we bill local dues in June that are due in July. So look for that the beginning of December. We just concluded an RPAC raffle, and we had our local on the local level. So Lori, we did that yesterday. That's out there on Facebook, and we did a Zoom meeting with that yesterday with NC Realtors. And so we had as our big winner, who was the top winner? I know we had John Leatherwood, and we also had Kent Copeland of the 250 and 100, and
Danielle Taylor.
Danielle Taylor won the $250. So
she won 500.
500. That's right.
Danielle won 500. John Leatherwood won 250, and Kent Copeland won $100. Best phone calls I made yesterday.
There you go. And just to follow up with that, NC Realtors has a raffle that we will post in our private Facebook group and get out in an email to you, that they have a raffle going on until December 5th. You know, the investment in RPAC, I can't say enough as a former government affairs director and working with Donna and the government affairs committee, just on, you know, what we are involved in and what we do. And I don't know if many of you are aware of this, but there are some associations that don't even have a government affairs committee. So all real estate is local when it comes to our MLS, when it comes to local rules, regulations, zoning issues, elections. We want to have people in office that are realtor friendly, that understand the importance of private property rights and your industry. And so that's where RPAC makes a huge difference. So I know we still need some more of those investors, Lori, and to meet our goal that is set for us, we should have 37% of our membership that invest in RPAC. It's the biggest investment you can make in your business. So at $15 minimum. And I know I spent that at a coffee shop one day this week. So I want to let you know about that. Our calendar, you should all be aware as brokers in charge of the outerbanksrealtors.com website. I'm not going to pull it up at this time, but on it is a calendar where you can find upcoming events, where you can find even things like I mentioned, the NCDOI CE. If we see something like that and we feel it's important to you, we post that on our calendar of events. We do have Wake Up with YPN this Friday, MLS Magic with Dan the Man Sutherland. So that is at 9 o'clock this Friday. YPN's done a great job this year with offering you opportunities to hear from different businesses, speakers on topics that are important to your business. The planning and zoning course that we have on Monday, if you're not registered, you might want to rethink this. If you have time Monday, not only do you get a certificate, you get CE credit, certificate from NAR. It is coming to you from a grant that we got from NAR NAR, this one was a $3,000 grant. We are offering it to you free, but it's not free to us. So if you registered, please let us know if you can't make it, because we are buying lunch and covering the additional costs for this. This grant is from their NAR Smart Growth Grant program, and it's this planning and zoning course that we are working with. Again, real estate is local. We are bringing in Donna to work with Nate Johnson from NAR on this course to give you a better understanding of the planning and zoning process and how this all works and why it's important to you. Because what a neighbor has done on a piece of property, your buyer might not be able to do with their property, or your owner in the property management company and the property management program not be able to do. So this was huge, and that's $3,000 support for this class. Also, along the lines of government affairs, Donna didn't mention this, but I want to let everyone know, if you live in the town of Nags Head, they have a septic health initiative that you can apply to the town of Nags Head for a grant to have your septic system inspected. Or I think they just got a big grant that you may able to apply to have a zero interest loan to replace your septic system. And we got to talking and we said, you know what? NC Realtors has an innovative grant, typically for associations to do different things. How about if we put our heads together and it meets our legislative policy statements on water quality? We went and applied for a $5,000 grant for an Outer Banks community septic health collaboration. And we will be working in 2026 and beginning now on working with the other towns to get them to offer the same thing. And so I know we talked about Duck possibly doing this. We were only one of 3 associations in the entire state to get this grant. So applause to the Outer Banks Association of Realtors and for leading the charge on making a difference in water quality and septic health in our county. So that's huge. So hats off to OBAR for getting that. We've also gotten some other grants throughout the year for the NAR Dare County Community Housing Task Force. NAR gave us a grant for $3,000 to support that affordable, accessible housing initiative through Dare County. We had gotten a grant to sponsor our bias override course back in the spring in April. And we've gotten a grant from the North Carolina Realtors Housing Foundation for $2,000 to assist our YPN group to do some rehab on houses for some folks, wheelchair ramps, et cetera. And that's going to be taking place in December. So you all need to be aware of that. You also need to be aware that through our community partner program, what we've done is partnered with Outer Banks this week. This was our latest ad with Outer Banks This Week magazine, listing all of our community partners that support our 3 charitable events: Surf, Turf, and Roll, our surf fishing tournament, our golf tournament, and our bowling tournament that supports OBAR's disaster relief and scholarship funds. You as realtors should be very proud of this and the many years that have gone into giving back to local high school seniors scholarships. And then if there is a family in need in this community, we can put money in their hands within a few days by accessing that fund. And again, that's something to be very proud of, community outreach and what we're involved in there. So we've got the calendar on the website. You know about our communication. Coming up in December 5th, we're going to have our Realtor Ball. We hope you all come and join us December 5th at the Hilton. We will have a live band, food, drinks, and that is where we will recognize the Realtor of the Year and installer officers for 2026. And it's a party. So this is Janice Scarborough's party as president-elect and her coming in for next year. We would like to get out. I would like to get out and meet with you in your office. Let's talk about our recently, the board is actually going to be reviewing our strategic plan that we just spent 2 days with a group that is working on our strategic plan. So there are many pillars to our strategic plan. Once the board looks at that and approves the final draft of that on November 20th, we will get that out to everybody. But we would like to meet you where you are. So I will be contacting some of you that are, I will be contacting probably all of you that are in this BIC Break about meeting with you to talk about our strategic plan, how you need to get involved, your agents need to get involved. We are going to be kicking off a community engagement module of our association management software system that just to keep you further informed. You know, we communicate through email, we communicate through podcasts, we You know, every now and then there's a Take 5 with OBAR, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. So, and let you know about our community partner program and how you as realtors can participate in our community partner program, our committee drive, and just like lots going on here. And thank you for all of you for your involvement and participating on committees. That committee drive for 2026 is opening up. You can go on the website right now and decide to be part of a committee. But that's it.
Willow,
Thank
we've got 2 minutes left, and I accidentally skipped over Lori Brooks on the agenda to ask for some feedback on the PMD. Lori, jump in real quick.
It's actually the VRA, so I don't
VRA.
forms committee for the state. You all know that. So anytime you have an issue or have a question, feel free to reach out to me. We look at these forms all the time. I was just in Greensboro on Monday. So we're looking at officer purchase is going to change again, buyer agencies being tweaked. We're also looking at the vacation rental addendum. So if you have any feedback that you want to share with me that I can take back to the task force, please let me know.
Perfect. Thank you, Lori. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Willow?
No, I was checking to see the chat here. Is there's any questions on what we're doing? Again, in order to be informed, you have to be engaged. And in order to be engaged, you have to be informed. So I tell everybody that KIP is my best friend. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the better off you are, because someone else might not know that. So the more you know, the less you don't know. So stay involved, participate, and then definitely communicate.
Well, thank you all for joining us again. It is 10 o'clock. We are going to let you get back to your day, and I will send you a follow-up shortly. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, I am hopping off. Bye.